many ways that we learned about that he was before that too. Obviously, Ray can speak to that. But we didn't really learn about that until the 90s, until they started winning, and all of a sudden the pressure was off this idea that he was firing people left and right. It's I always look at it on, and again, I'm not voting. I choose not to vote, but I always look at it on impact on the game. And how do you argue against that?
Right, and then you look at it, and we'll get to Negroni. I'm sure he has some questions. You brought up Bud Selig. Yeah, Bud's in there overlooking the whole steroid thing because he looked at it from a business point of view and said, home runs, this is going to get us a lot of money and a lot of business, and that's what Bud did. Bud turned a blind eye to what was going on, and it created a huge money stream for Major League Baseball.
Yeah. No,
and he's in.
Well, all I can say is I'm hoping, because for me, if George Steinbrenner gets into the Hall of Fame, it's a whole series of new questions from the younger people who's going to say, why is he in? What did he do? And then you're going to hear the negative.
The greatness.
But you're also going to hear the greatness too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And anybody that's in the Hall of Fame, they're not Father Flanagan. Okay? Some of these guys are real scandalous dudes, but yet they're in there. So let's stop it already. But anyway, with that being said, we're going to be going back and forth. The one thing that I also want to say is that Dana Cavalea is here. Dana's got a new book. Okay, Habit of a Champion. Why did you decide to do this book? And why didn't you do it when you were working for the New York Yankees? You were the last trainer or health and fitness guy that was there when the Yankees were world champions. You were the guy. You were the only guy. Now they got like 3 guys. Yeah, why didn't you do it then?
We weren't supposed to write books when we were there.
Okay.
We had a singular focus, get the guys ready, train them, and play to win. So really, writing a book wasn't on my mind at that point. I had a lot more to focus on. I had my hands full, if you will, with some of the players that I had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, again, writing a book just wasn't a part of my plan. I was busy watching you write books.
Well, let me just say this, and thank you. But look, you were training these guys. They were winning championships. They won a big championship. How much pressure was that on you?
Listen, I always say I was an asset manager for the Steinbrenner family, right? I had $300 million in human capital that I had to manage correctly and make sure that capital was ready to be deployed each day at 7:05. And that's really was my responsibility. So it was pressure, but you didn't think about it as pressure because, you had your routine that you executed day in and day out. You matched that routine up with the player's routine, and together, we created a winning formula. So,
every time a player got hurt under your watch,
right?
How difficult was that?
It's sickening, because again, you're training these guys, you're in the trenches with them, you're trying to make them bulletproof and put armor all over them. And, listen, sometimes injuries do happen. It could come from hydration status, it could come from temperature, it could come from just being a little bit fatigued that day, or maybe we flew in the night before and we were in a seat, all locked up. But there's so many factors that contribute to an injury. But when it happened and it went down, you just don't feel good about it because of the time you put into.
I've been with the Yankees 45 years. I know how it works. Who gave you the worst beating from the standpoint of a player went down? They got to point the finger at somebody, so it's got to be you. Now, when that happened, how bad was it?
Jeez. Well, listen, at the end of the day, I know Jim's here, but you really just wanted to keep it out of the papers because the fans would be the ones that would lash you the most. And
right.
And usually they'd find out about it, obviously, on TV, and then they read about it the next day, and they say, again, another injury? It must be the strength guy,
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that. It's so unfair.
Guys like me, I don't have anyone else to blame, so I just have to take the hit.
Well, you were working by yourself.
I was working solo. I liked it that way, though.
But were you ever pressured into hey, add another guy because we have this guy, that guy? How do you,
Yeah, later in my career, the needs of the player started to expand. Everybody wanted more and more individualized attention. So later, guys wanted more. So we did the best we could, myself and Steve Donahue and Mark Littlefield, to really spread out the load. But, to have an extra hand on deck is a blessing and a curse. I knew what everybody needed. I knew how they felt. There was no other lines of communication opening up. It was just direct. Dana to player, player to me.
Every time that a player got hurt under your watch, did you ever feel like these guys, they're millionaires, multimillionaires, some of them. So they have their own strength and fitness guy. Did you ever feel that may have been because of what they were doing with these guys as opposed to what you wanted to do with
That's
them?
a good question.
You know what I'm saying? Did you ever think about that?
Early in my career, I did. But, I got to say, after my first year, I got a lot of the guys to train with me. They weren't training with other guys outside.
I did see that.
Yeah,
I did see that.
So my first year, a guy like Jeter had his own guy. Jorge had his own guy.
Right.
And then, I built the trust. I built, most importantly, before trust, just a relationship. And, from that point on, they started to work with me. I mean, I'd go to Miami. I'd work with Alex. I'd work with Jorge, all those guys in the off season. So there wasn't much of that.
But these guys would bring their fitness guys to the stadium.
Yeah.
How was that? Was there ever like a face-off?
Yeah, no. You know what? We all got along for the most part.
But
Dana, it's like the Tom Brady thing. I mean, look at the whole thing with Tom. He created a whole...
separation.
Total separation. And last year it was Belichick. This is what they say. We don't know what's the truth and what's not. That's why we got writers to do some homework, do detective work. But supposedly Belichick threw the guy off the sideline, off the plane, and he was with them for years. And Tom and him built a very, very strong business, correct?
Well, listen, I'll tell you this. If the roles were reversed and I was that guy having to show up at the stadium, I would feel very uncomfortable.
Right.
I just feel like that's not the right thing to do, and I'd say, listen, if I'm going to work with you, it's got to be private, away from the field. Once you get to the field, I don't exist. That's what I would create, because it's not fair to the person that holds that position, and I don't want to get pulled in. Let's say there are a bunch of injuries. Now I'm the outside guy getting pulled into an internal problem. I don't want that either.
So now that you wouldn't, 1 second, Negroni, you wouldn't. You asked him like 10 questions. I got a couple. But my thought is, if I got my own guy and you're the team guy, shouldn't you be talking to my guy and we all be on the same team? Because it's interesting how, if I'm bringing my guy in the off season and then I got you during the season, and I liked how you said like you would go to Miami and work with Posada and A-Rod. So it seems like you ended up becoming the guy. But wasn't there a relationship with you and their guy in the beginning? Yeah,
there was. I mean, for those guys that lived in colder climates where I didn't want to be in the winter, I would actually have a conversation with the guy. I actually would place a lot of our players with guys that I knew in the industry, and that was my rule. Listen, we just have to openly communicate. Here's what the guy needs. Work on it. You could play a little bit and have a little fun and use your own philosophy, because that's important. You don't want to handcuff somebody. But, don't hurt him. Like, we had an incident with Phil Hughes. He was working at a big place that was well known and had a hamstring injury. One of those years they had him pulling sleds, and it was like, why do you have a pitcher, doing speed training and speed development protocols? It created a problem. So I had to navigate both our front office, our training staff, and that private entity and the player. And you're kind of working all of that to keep everybody from, killing each other.
Right.
And at the end of the day, saying, listen, let's just get focused on how do we get this player right for April 1st.
Right. I mean, somebody needs to quarterback the whole situation.
So anything performance related, I would tend to be the quarterback. But I was in touch with the guys. I didn't feel threatened. I maybe a little bit when I was first starting off, because I didn't understand the climate and how everything was working and why are these guys here. But I could do the job. And there was a little bit of that, but then I started to understand what it was and why those guys were there initially, but not later in my career.
Jim, I got to ask you now, you saw how big the whole physical fitness thing, and half the time it was the situation whereas you may have had to ask questions pertaining to that situation. How did you ever go to Dana? Did you ever have to
Well, I'll tell you, I come at this from a weird standpoint, because I lost years of my life talking to Brian McNamee. the
Oh,
whole
God.
Clement stuff.
Right.
And I ended up covering that trial and all that stuff. So I come from back from that era, which was the steal the A-Rod straight,
Right.
goosey as they
Right.
got. And so my question is, like, did they ever put in any rules to keep guys out? Because I remember the whole Alejo thing with Giambi back in the early 2000s, and that was even like annoying other players, and so like there's a lot of like personalities there, not even just with like workplace issues, which is what you're talking about, but like, you know, when all of a sudden there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and you know, anyway, are there the rules in place?
Yeah, I want to say I'm not sure of the exact rule, but I know that there was a rule that the trainers could not be basically in the inner workings of the clubhouse and things like that. So that was the rule.
How upset were you with that?
I mean, listen, I wasn't upset because at the end of the day, it just was saying that they couldn't be in the clubhouse, they couldn't be in our training facility. They had to, if they were ever going to work with somebody, it actually had to be away from the field.
Oh, okay.
So it was a good thing.
Right. For you, it was a good thing.
Yeah, and what happened too was, you know, think about it. It became a little bit of an inconvenience because now the players got to start figuring out, and these guys, they don't want to figure things out. They want it handed to them and scripted and all there, and you just have to do and react and run the play. They're trained that way. You know, an uncoached player is kind of like an untrained dog. They don't know what to do. So they just go nuts.
What I was always curious about with someone in your role, and I don't know if I'm breaking...
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, because I don't know the rules.
No, it's free for all.
You can ask anything, because I had a couple
too,
so don't worry.
It's hard to sit down and like, I got this question.
Yeah.
So, what I'm always curious about with someone in your position is that, you know, players are, by nature, competitive.
Right.
And they're competitive in the sense that, you know, they're a Yankee. They're a Yankee today, but they may be a Red Sox tomorrow. That's just the business of it. So a lot of times, I always sense that they didn't trust the people that was working for the organization. So now you're coming at it with your own guy, but here's someone from now they don't question that you have their best interests at heart, but do they tell you everything because they wonder where that information is going? Did you ever worry about that stuff?
I think it's about how you build that relationship. You know, early in my career, my first year actually, you know, Rob Kakuza, a longtime Yankee clubhouse manager.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, he said to me, he said, Dana, you know, he pulled me aside one day and he said, listen, I want to tell you that relationships in this game are built outside of the field. So we're going to dinner tonight with the guys. And really from that point, I got to know the guys on a really much deeper level outside of the field.
Right.
So they said, all right, you're cool to roll with us. And,
right.
you know, it's listen, as a coach, you're not supposed to be out at, you know, too many dinners or too many after parties and things like that. But believe it or not, for me, because I was young at the time, I was only 23 years old.
Right.
It kind of gave me rites of passage to know that, okay, he's not a rat. He's not going to, you know, cause problems and start spreading rumors and, you know. So.
Well, we're here with Dana Cavalea, Habits of a Champion. That can go both ways. Because then you can be out with the guys, you become friends with the guys, then they're going to do stuff in front of you because if they feel comfortable. So it is a thin line. Yeah, you want to go and become friendly with them so they realize you're one of them. On the other hand, I like and respect how you're saying, listen, they all want to be coached, they all need the structure, and you're giving them the structure. So, and in your era, your run, this whole steroid thing, and still today, we don't know who's doing it, what's doing it, and it's unfortunate because anybody who hits 40 homers, you know what I mean, is like, oh, wait a second. You know, how's he hitting 40 homers? So I think that was a tough situation.
5'2". How's he doing that?
Right. Yeah, I think that's tough for you. But that is really cool that, you know, at 23 years old, you're in the Yankee clubhouse, man. I mean, that just sounds like a little like you. I mean, when you were younger.
But let me say,
I had an early mentor.
Yeah, right.
But let me ask you this. Now, you're riding around, you know, part of this magical mystery tour, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys were somewhat like the band on the run. I mean, when you were going from town to town and you're seeing the other strength and fitness guys and all that, because I see you guys get together. Hey, what's going on? I mean, did you feel like the bad butt? I can't say bad words on the show, so
You can't?
I will say, like,
Jim didn't care. He was ready to say anything.
you definitely get a little bit of an elitist mentality.
Right.
I mean, you know that.
I saw that. Your
yeah.
wife is in back here and backstage over there. Yes, he thought he was like Cary Grant. Okay.
I always say it's like traveling with the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
you know? But yeah, I mean, think about the personality